Imagine being ready to move into your first property and you're so excited because you finally found that perfect place to call home, only for the seller to attempt to sabotage the escrow 1 week before closing. That's exactly what happened to one of my clients, and it got ugly. This was a gated condo tucked away in East Las Vegas that was originally listed at $259,000. I negotiated the price down to $250,000 and even got closing costs covered for my client. Now, this sounded like a win, especially since this was my client's second attempt at buying a home after the first deal fell through before the final inspection. So as you can imagine, when this one lined up, it felt like a redemption story for my client until everything started to unravel and fall apart right before closing. If you ever wonder what really happens behind the scenes of a tough deal in real estate, this video is for you. Now let's set the stage so you have an idea of how this transaction got to where it was and you can understand it a little bit better. Now, the client that I've been working with initially reached out to me on Instagram about a year ago, and she said she wanted to buy a home but needed to work on her credit a little bit. I talked to her about all her options and was able to connect her with my lender, who set her up with a game plan in order to put her in a position to buy. Fast forward a year later, my client actually reached back out and had her pre-approval done from my lender and was ready to start her home buying journey. We found a property that she really liked, but it was a little bit out of her budget range. In order to qualify, we attempted to add her son to the loan so that she can qualify for a higher purchase price. We got all the way until a few days before the final walkthrough and the loan was denied. As you can imagine, my client was extremely upset and frustrated, but I let her feel her feelings and I told her that we need to get right back into the market because the game plan is to still find her a home. Now let's change the setting a little bit and talk about the property that we found and why it was such an absolute nightmare so you can get an idea of what we were trying to buy. Now, this condo was 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and had about 1,500 square feet, and it had a 2-car garage. It was inside a gated community in East Las Vegas, and it checked a lot of boxes for my client. One of the things that she told me in the home buying process was she didn't want to be on the first floor because she didn't want to have noise above her. Now, the unit we found was on the 2nd floor and it had a small balcony with a view of the strip. This condo was listed for sale for $259,000 and had been on the market for almost 4 months by the time we saw it. My client and I saw this home and I told her that we can probably get it for less because of the days on market. Before even seeing that property in person, we saw another one down the street in the same complex a day before. The thing about this property was it was on the 1st floor and had a very similar layout. Now, because of my client's preferences, she wanted to go and look at that other condo before we made a decision. The other condo that she wanted to see on the 2nd floor didn't have the availability to view until the following week. So I reached out to the listing agent and asked if we can get in before the following week, and we were actually able to get in the following day. I knew my client was ready to pull the trigger, so the sense of urgency was there to see the other home. Now, even though the listing agent was able to get us in sooner, we had to get into the home while the owners were still occupying it and were there when we went to go view it. When we went to go view the property, we thought it could be some cosmetic updates, but it had enough space for her and her 2 sons. The owner of the home was home and she walked us through the property and she was super nice and actually treated us super sweet. During the walkthrough, she mentioned she was the president of the HOA community board and how good the community was. She also gave us hints that she would be open to negotiating a sales price, but I told my client to keep quiet and we'll discuss it later. We left this viewing feeling like this was the one, and it was a good shot that after losing out on the last one, we might actually end up getting this one. Now let's get to the part of the story where things started to turn left and red flags started to come up everywhere. Now, we had already been in contract and we were ready to close and we had made it through all of our contingencies and we were 1 week from closing, and then I get a text from the listing agent and she tells me that her seller needs another extension to close this deal. Mind you, per the contract, we had already given the seller an extra 3 days to occupy the property after we closed. There was also a hard deadline for my client because she had to get out of her current apartment in the next week. Now, there wasn't much wiggle room for my client's timeline to allow the seller to stay any more extra days. We were also still waiting to confirm our final walkthrough at this time, and the seller kept putting it off and wouldn't let us get access to the property. The listing agent was not responding to my text about the final walkthrough, and we were literally 3 days out. The listing agent finally responded to me and she told me that we can do the final walkthrough, but the seller still needed additional days before she can move out. And their excuse for this was the home that they were buying wasn't ready yet. I took this to my client and told her about the situation, and she told me that she doesn't agree to give them extra days because she already gave them extra days when they move out of this home. I communicated this back to the listing agent via text and told her that this was not going to work out for my client. She then went ghost and she didn't even respond to me, and this was like for hours. Since I couldn't get a hold of her via text and that was how we were primarily having conversations, I ended up calling her and told her about the extension and the walkthrough and that we needed to get access to the property. She then tells me that her seller is not going to close anymore unless we pay an additional $5,000 and that the seller is not going to give us the agreed upon closing costs that was in the contract. Now, as you can imagine, I immediately told her that that's not going to happen and they can't make those type of demands after signing a contract that states otherwise. The listing agent then hung up in my face. And if you know me, you know that's something that I really don't tolerate, and I hate it when people do it, so I don't do it. So I sent the listing agent a text and told her how unprofessional that was. And when the issues in the transaction are coming from her clients, it shouldn't be an issue coming from her when she knows why we're having all these problems. Now, after I sent that long, stern text, the listing agent finally responded to me and apologized for hanging up in my face and told me that she was upset that I wasn't coming up with a solution for what we had going on. Now, I don't know about you, but it was really odd to me that she was upset that I wouldn't find a solution to her problems because the problems were coming from her clients. Now, at this point, we were one day away from closing, so getting the final walkthrough done was critical, and making sure the seller didn't continue to try to back out of the deal was even more important. Now, whether you're new to my channel or you've been here for a while, let me reintroduce myself. My name is Chris Brown and I'm a real estate advisor with Simply Vegas. Here on my channel, I hope you find your new home whether you're a local or relocating from somewhere else. I'd appreciate it if you like this video, subscribe to my channel, and click the bell so you don't miss any of the good, the bad, the ugly about living in Las Vegas. If you happen to be watching on the TV, scan the QR code on your screen so you don't miss any of my new upcoming videos. If you would like to reach out to me directly, you can call me, email me, or text me by using my contact information in the description below. Now let's get back to the story so I can tell you about the final walkthrough that literally blew my mind. Now, I was pretty fed up with the listing agent at this point, and I even got my broker involved so he can help get this closed on time with the agreed upon terms. Now, my broker, he ended up stepping in and reaching out to the listing agent's broker to let them know how illegal it was for the seller to demand more money as well as try to unilaterally change the contract terms. My broker basically told their listing broker that if they don't move forward with this contract, we're going to sue them, the seller, as well as the agent. Now, the good thing about this situation is the listing agent's broker was on our side and he agreed 100% that we were right. He later called back in the afternoon to let me know that the seller was going to be moving forward with the contract as executed. So basically what happened, the seller didn't want to get sued and their entire energy shifted. We were finally granted access to do the final walkthrough, and what sounded like a relief was actually just more nonsense waiting to happen. So picture this, my client and I get to the final walkthrough and the owner was still there. She let us into the property and didn't say one word to us. It was like she was mad at us for wanting to buy her home. On the final walkthrough, when we got to the home, nothing was packed and nothing was moved. And per our contract, they already had 3 extra days to get out. But after looking at the home during the final walkthrough, I was certain they weren't gonna get out on time, and my clients and I knew it. The good thing was, in the contract, I had it written that if the seller didn't vacate the property on the last day, they're gonna have to pay a $1,000 fee. Now, this money was gonna be held in an escrow account and was gonna be taken out of their net profit. When I'm writing contracts, I'm always gonna look for opportunities to protect my clients in the long run. Having that clause in the contract let my clients and the seller know that we're gonna hold them accountable if they don't follow through with the terms of the contract. This is also to help ensure that when we buy this home, when we move into this home, that it's gonna be in the same condition that we saw during the walkthrough. Now, let me tell you, this was probably the best thing I could have done for my client, because when we arrived at the home after the final walkthrough, it was in such a mess from the seller, it was unimaginable. It was so nasty and dirty, and a mess was everywhere. It was disgusting, you guys. They left trash, old food, furniture, you name it, it was left in the home. I was in so much shock, I had no words for my client on how I actually felt. All I could do was tell her that the only positive thing in this situation is the seller is gone and it's time for her to get this home ready for her to move in. I told my client, now yes, they left you a big, huge mess behind, but I'm gonna help you get this place right and get together to start that next chapter in your life. At this point in the video, I wanna give you a quick pop quiz, and the first person to answer correctly in the comments will get a shout out from me on the channel. What was the illegal decision made by the home seller during this escrow process? Was it A, back out of the deal? B, change the contract terms agreed to? C, sell the home to another buyer? Or was it D, change the appearance of the home? Let me know in the comments. Now, after walking into that disaster, I knew I had to move quickly, because the longer that home was a mess, the longer it was gonna be for my client to move into her new home that she purchased. Now, not only did the seller leave the home an absolute mess, but they also didn't share very many keys with us. No mailbox key, no garage door key, no front gate key, and the only one that they left was one key for the front door. The home needed to be clean, trash needed to be thrown out, and it needed a fresh coat of paint. The first thing I did was I went to Lowe's and bought my client a garage door opener and new locks for every door. I then installed everything that I bought without telling her, and then I ordered a large trash pickup. I knew I had to get the place empty in order to get it clean, so that was my first step. Once the trash was out, I had the cleaners come in and I had them deep clean the house from top to bottom. I had literally everything in that place clean. My client then had a painter come in and repaint the entire home. Now this was all done in the span of 2 days, and my client was finally able to move into that home with a clean slate. Now in total, I spent about $750 out of my pocket to get her home ready, and it was worth every penny once I saw my client come inside the home and she was able to see exactly what she had purchased. She walked in the home and said, "It finally feels like it's mine." That made every bit of what I did to help her get that home worth it. I want you all to know, not every agent in real estate is built the same, and not every home deal is smooth, but the right support will all make the difference. My job isn't just about homes, it's about protecting people and their investment. If this was you, what would you have done in this situation? Would you still close? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I want to know. For more videos about relocating to Las Vegas or Henderson, click on one of the other videos on the screen. I appreciate you all watching. I'll see you on the next one.